Alright, it's very scenic out here. I just want to record a little bit on the iPhone 4. A nice side view. I've been doing that a little bit in different places. This is the Snake River, looking at Idaho, but in Oregon and looking at Idaho. And it's I think it's mountain time, and I don't know exactly where that begins. The Copperfield said that they closed the showers at 10 p.m. mountain time, but I don't have a clue where that mountain time is. Is it an hour earlier now? Do I have to make an adjustment on these Apple products? I gotta look at the times in the city and see. Because if that's the case, that means the library actually closes an hour earlier. And yeah, I'm cut off. There's another campground area, campsite. Oh. Camping. No shooting within 300 yards. And there's a major slowdown in speed. Yeah, that's quite a campground. Oh man. Oh God, that is pretty bad. Idaho Power Company. Well, yeah, they're probably hosting another campground. See, the difference between eating healthy and unhealthy, to me, is a matter of whether you feed your fat cells or you feed the other tissues that are healthier, like your muscle and your bone. You see a lot of these overweight people, they have really fleshy bodies that are loose and soft, and they lack bone structure too. Alright, there are some overweight ones that have some strong looking jaws, but of course those strong jaws are covered up by the extra chins and stuff. But if you're going to eat a lot of sugar when you're young, you're not going to develop a very strong jaw. Not many people are able to do that. It really takes an enormous feat. Maybe if you have some kind of like a mutation in your enzyme that could actually process that processed sugar better, then you might be able to develop a stronger bone structure in besides having all that extra sugar extract. But I think that mutation might take a long time to develop, and yeah. It's I mean, sugar production has only been around a couple hundred years, but it's just you look at people who consume a lot of sugar. It's really plain to see. All right, they're not going to have strong muscles. They're not going to have strong bone structures, and you can see it on them. They're just going to have soft, fleshy bodies. And I believe that me having grown up eating a lot of sugar, I developed a soft, fleshy body, and I think it might be harder for me to look muscular. I may have been a weightlifter throughout my teens and 20s, but those muscles never really came through. I kind of tried to like diet and make it so that my muscles would show, but my skin seemed kind of thick to really show muscle. It seems like it takes an enormous effort to show muscle through the fat, and I think that I was really developing my fat cells more than the other tissues like bone and muscle, and now my fat cells, I don't know if they're just more responsive to eating sugar, where they'll grow on me, more likely to grow, or what. yet, but it's easier to get fats based on the diets and stuff. Um, it really bothers me that people think that they have to have these sugar extracts. It's like, to me, it's like a cocaine addict saying, yeah, I gotta get my fix. Alright, I have to have my sugar, I have to have my fix. I have to have my heroin, I have to have my addiction. If they're saying I have to have it, that's an addiction, okay? There's no diabetes out there, in my opinion at least. Okay, I'm not really a medical practitioner, but there's no diabetes that require you to have sugar. It's ridiculous. I mean, these are drug extracts that we're talking about. A raspberry, do you have to have a raspberry? You're naturally not going to have a raspberry. Alright, but if they concentrate the juices, and people can get addicted to the concentration, there's different ways of extracting, but yeah, the most addictive form of sugar extraction has been with chemicals, using chemical solvents. And people have to have it. Kids absolutely have to have it. They're not afraid of getting fats, and they're totally confident that they can lose the fat later in life. All right, so they're gonna get fat at a young age, thinking that they're kids. They're just kids. They'll get over it, and that's not so much the case. You are permanently damaging yourself. All right, you're losing the bone structure. You're gonna replace that bone structure that you didn't feed when you were a kid? Unlikely. You've been feeding the fat. I mean, look at the people who have gained a ton of weight and then lost it and had all that stretched out skin. It's very unhealthy. And it's not just stretched out skin. It's not just thicker fat tissues that are more keen to growing when you feed them. There's the, what do you got, muscle memory? You got fat memory too. Alright? Your muscles may have, if you're a weightlifter, your muscles may have remembered that you were big and strong at one point if you stopped weightlifting. Your fat cells are going to remember that too. Alright? It's going to be easier to put on that fat because you got fat cell memory. There might be such thing as bone memory too. It's just, you reach a satiation point, you push past it, and then you withdraw. Your muscles kind of remember that. Your muscles, your body, in general, your brain remembers that you were once a thicker person, all right, and that you are capable of achieving that again. Thicker, whatever. So there's muscle. There's more. I think there's more than muscle memory. I think there's also fat memory, but that's with size. I'm not talking about skill like shooting a free throw consistently or anything. There is that kind of muscle memory too. But you do walk a different way when you're overweight. You do act a different way. And people like that disability. I mean, we're in seemingly the prime. I like to think kind of, edging towards the end of the prime with the ease of getting around and electronics and hydraulics, lifting people and moving people. You can put on all kinds of weight. And you got geniuses who invent ways of moving larger people around, so they got more of an excuse to let themselves go and become more helpless in a way, disabled. Alright, it's easier to be disabled in this day and age than it was at any other time, okay? I mean, you got the internet, you got electronics, hydraulics, all that stuff that helps support you. So getting that, doing whatever getting into your addiction is really something that you can let control your life. And the government lets you let it control your life too, all right, by not regulating sugar. So there's a large class of people, and I think they're completely underestimating the numbers of overweight people. There are a lot more than just 25% Yeah, from what people I've seen around, um, they're just they're really excusing this addiction to sugar. All right, you could see it in people's bodies, see it on their faces. All right, their actions are different. An addict's actions are always going to be different. It's really consumed the country. What you got to do is study other countries that don't have this addiction problem. I think maybe Eastern Europe might not be suffering as much. I'm not sure. Maybe they are, but indigenous countries, indigenous peoples who are living separate from society. Maybe the Amish might be a little separate from the rest of our culture of eating high sugar products. Although the Amish might be consuming sugar, I believe there might have been. I've seen some overweight ones in Wisconsin. Um, but the best way to really avoid the heavy sugar usage is to separate yourself. Yeah, kind of create your own pioneer environment again and get away from the grocery stores, because the grocery stores are turning more and more into candy stores. I've never seen vitamins that look like they're sugar laden, that like candy, before. When I was in the 90s, when I was in the 80s too, when I was a kid, the vitamins were strictly vitamins. They weren't sugar. They weren't like candy. They didn't ball them up in candy wrappings or anything. So people are feeding the wrong tissues these days, and it's been excusable. People say there's no problem with it, and that means it's just going to continue on for a lot longer.